Greetings. Today's post focuses on a news flash that happens once every 2 weeks, which is that Tesla is burning through a lot of cash. And not only are they burning through a lot of cash, but it's completely irrelevant. And number three, they're burning through a lot of cash, and the stock price is going to fall $100 as a result of this cash burn. Greetings, Guten Tag, wie geht's, wie steht's noch immer aus Feinbeinen. This is Greg for Tesla Fan Insight. One of the things I've started to do and develop is a weekly process of covering different aspects of how and what's going on with Tesla. In this week's post, I'm fascinated because right now there are a large number of hedge funds who stand to lose billions of dollars if the Model 3 is successful. As a result, they're engaging the firms that they do business with to sort of invent fake news as a way to try to tank the Tesla stock heading into the critical next 3 months. So, first of all, the main sort of anti-Tesla stock news that has been focused on is the fact that Tesla's burning through a lot of cash. Now, I'm fascinated by this because, for example, today, I believe the 27th of September 2017, there's a huge discussion going on focused on the fact that there's an investment firm that gave a $100 downgrade on where Tesla stock goes because of their cash burn, and the fact that they're using statistics. For example, Tesla will have burned through $10 billion in cash by the end of 2017, and no other entity has burned through more than $1 or $2 billion worth of cash. Now, I'm fascinated by this because 3 points come up on this cash burn. Number one, is the cash Tesla is using being used in a stupid way? So that is an interesting question. So if you consider building out their new factory, if you consider them building new service facilities for customers, if you consider them sort of finishing out their vertical integration, if you consider them finishing the factory necessary to get the Model 3s to market, I mean, there are a number of ways this capital is being used. And all of those methods are actually solid investments on the part of Tesla in capital equipment to set up for the production of all their vehicles, as well as, the battery supplies. So the answer is, if the cash burn relates, capital equipment is different than ongoing expenses. So once this, if you will, cash burn occurs, and I don't think it's going to stop for a while, you're going to have the infrastructure of company that can do huge amounts of business. That's why their stock price is this high to begin with. So the only question about the money being spent is there are a lot of investors studying this to find out, A, how much cash is being burned, and B, what are they doing with this cash? And the answer is everything that they're pouring this cash into is a valid use of capital to set the company up for huge growth in the future, as well as servicing the clientele that they're bringing in. So I just think that the whole capital equipment burn issue is ridiculous. It's particularly ridiculous when you consider the fact that when Tesla is competing with 100-year-old companies, the cost basis for all of General Motors' factories and office buildings is currently zero. Why? Because they've owned those things for 50 years. So if you're building an infrastructure that other companies have had in place for 100 years, you burn through cash. So I believe that the the cash burn nightmare that's brought up every 2 or 3 weeks in the press, usually spearheaded by a large firm's analyst, is completely ridiculous unless you're the hedge fund paying for this sort of fake news to be encouraged or put out. The next thing I wanted to cover is the fact that I will say I'm a little bit worried about Tesla in terms of what they're doing, because the vertical integration process they're doing is worrisome, because if you think about it, one of the benefits that comes with being a large ICE manufacturer currently is what your dealer network does is they buy all the cars from you, so you kind of have no inventory, and all that cash is repatriated within the company. In the Tesla setting, the more cars they build, the more cars that are actually sitting, and even if those vehicles are sold, Tesla is continuing to reinvest the dollars sold on a vehicle back into vehicles where they're 80% of their own supply chain. So the answer, if you're a Tesla investor, is that yes, Tesla has a problem with cash. They're burning through a great deal of it. But if Elon Musk isn't seen with, 10 call girls that cost $1 million a piece a month, I just think that this is really ridiculous, but it's very consistent with, I want to call, good hedge fund process, which is to float ideas that represents reasons why the stock should really tank. I also wanted to say that Tesla is also in a unique position because there's a huge question that's associated with what's going on with their batteries. And why this question lurks is that anytime you look at Tesla's stock price, they're compared with other automakers in terms of how they're structured and how much capital they have on their balance sheet, et cetera, et cetera. One of the issues, though, is because Tesla makes its own batteries and is the largest battery manufacturer in the world right now, it creates a problem where you have to not only compare them sort of in stock price and process to a car company, you also have to compare what they're doing when it comes to Tesla Energy in the form of the battery packs built, etc. So I believe that the capital equipment spending that's going on is actually smart. I believe that it doesn't make sense because that's not being done by other companies. And sort of one of the open questions is, what does this mean going into the future? Because either Tesla's completely wrong with what they've done, or this capital burn that everybody's talking about is bad news. Tesla's going to force a number of other companies into similar cash burns. And one example of this is a company called Mercedes, or Daimler-Benz Mercedes. They have now started building their own sort of mega factory, but not a gigafactory. Number one, as a way to source their own batteries because they don't currently make their own. And number two, they've also gone ahead and bought 50% of a lithium-ion battery manufacturer in Korea, recognizing the fact that those batteries are critical to their future growth into electric vehicles. So if anything is going on right now, instead of the capital burn by Tesla being inappropriate, stupid, doesn't work, and will tank the company's stock, I believe that there is setting a brewing battle where there are many manufacturers like Mercedes that are showing the way towards more companies choosing to vertically integrate, because what's happening in the battery technology space for the next 10 years is critical that your company control it, because there's shortages of it and there are different concepts that it might affect how it works within your vehicle. After 10 years from now, batteries will be ubiquitous and easy to buy from anyone, just like tires or other components or systems within a car. But until then, I believe it's a competitive advantage that determines whether or not you stay in business. So as a follow-on, because I'm an American, I'm kind of worried about GM and Ford and what their thought process is, because they're retaining the balance sheet structures that don't include capital equipment investment in the form of batteries, etc. And I believe that because of how critical that component of the development of your firm is, that it potentially puts them in out of business zone. So while they are retaining pristine balance sheets that are impressive to Wall Street and others, they're potentially jeopardizing the future of their company and their employees. So look forward to doing more posts on this, particularly as I was thinking through this, I just thought it was interesting because it's unusual for a small company like Tesla to force a shift in the balance sheet of larger competitors like General Motors, like Ford, like Daimler-Benz, etc. But it's the nature of the beast as we switch into an all-electric world, and hopefully we can get some U.S. manufacturers to embrace the flex to this new reality and stop watching the guys on Wall Street for what the number is going to be this quarter, because that can cost you your firm. I want to thank you for taking time out to embrace our logic for the day. This is Greg for Tesla Fan Insight. Look forward to my next post relative to where Tesla stock price is going and why on the investment side of the house for Tesla. Have a great day. Thanks. Please like and subscribe. Look forward to your input.